My name is Kayla, and this is my story. My story starts out, like any other normal story. I had a lot of friends, I was close with my family, and I loved God. One incident changed all of that. I was 11 and a half years old, staying at my at the time best friend's house. It was New Year's Eve. Her uncle had walked home from the bar, intoxicated. Long story short, he molested me. I was afraid of losing that friendship that I didn't tell anyone. I was also worried that it'd be his word against mine, and since he was drunk, he wouldn't remember it, so I didn't want to deal with that hassle. About a year and a half later, the friend had moved. I was suddenly no one, and I had told a close friend of mine. Suddenly, after it was out, it was back in my mind, and suddenly, I just felt worthless. The fact that I could be used like that, and depression set in. It hit so fast I had no idea what it even was. All I felt was hatred and anger towards everyone and everything. I started cutting myself a lot, almost every day, just to release that pain that I had held up inside. I was in 7th grade and I started drinking. I figured anything was better than to feel that pain. I didn't really care who I was around when I was depressed. I ended up cutting myself in front of one of my best friends, and I didn't care. She was screaming at me, and I didn't stop a thing. Shortly after that, this one person started getting close in my life. She was really close with God, and so she was sharing everything that He had to offer. His glory, His mercy, His unconditional love, and the complete joy that you feel when you're immersed in that. But I didn't feel that joy. And I was like, well, I believe in God, but I don't have any of that. So I convinced myself that I was that one exception, that nothing that I had in my life mattered to God. I didn't want to tell this person that, though, because I was afraid that I'd lose the friendship that was just starting to grow. And I didn't have very many friends. So I just continued to let her talk about God and all that, and just kind of shrugged it off. Eventually, it got to be too much. I became completely atheist, just turned my back and walked away. I didn't tell her, though, because I was still afraid of the friendship. Because the fact that she was so close with God, I thought if I was atheist, she'd just give up hope on me like everyone else had. It was the summer of 8th grade, right before I went into 9th grade. I hadn't talked to any of my friends like all summer. I was sitting in my room. It was a Friday night. And I was fixing to attempt suicide. The first actual attempt I had. I'd contemplated many times, but I was actually going to attempt. My phone ended up vibrating off of my dresser, and I looked at it. And it was a text from this friend saying, "Hey, God told me something was wrong. Are you okay? How's your summer been? I miss you," stuff like that. I didn't end up texting back, but it had stopped me from the attempt. Things continued to just go kind of downhill, though. My freshman year, it got so bad to the point to where I went and told my counselor what had happened. Next thing I knew, the cops and my mom was at school. And I had to report everything that had happened. I had to miss school because they were afraid of my safety, because there were other people at that party that went to my school, and they didn't want it to get out that I had told what had happened. I had to go up to the Child Advocacy Center where I had to give my story. They had to videotape me and me tell my story of what had happened. Then I remember this all happened on St. Patrick's Day. And then the 18th was when I had to go up to the Advocacy Center. And March 19th, which was my mother's birthday, I remember it was a snowy day and my parents had picked me up from school. They told me that I had to go to the police station for a police lineup to see if they had identified the man who had done that to me. Sure enough, I recognized the face right away. So, long story short, after many postponements of the case, he was found guilty. But that wasn't enough. That didn't get rid of the pain, the emotions that I had built up inside. I was still atheist. But that didn't stop this friend from trying to get me to go to youth group. She had talked to me literally every Sunday for 2 years straight trying to get me to go, but I always had an excuse. Finally, it was 2.5 years ago, she invited me to their youth rally. I had no idea what it was. I just figured it was going to be a bunch of kids hanging out having a good time. Little did I know I'd walk in there atheist and walk out a believer. I went back the following week and I was born again. And things were starting to finally look up. I thought, I've been accepted, as the depressed freak. I didn't have to hide in that shadow anymore. I had people to talk to. But things didn't get better. They ended up getting worse. I still ended up cutting. I still hated everything about me in my life. But God never gave up on me. One of the hardest things dealing with depression is knowing that people care, but you force yourself to believe that they don't. I've had a friend who actually committed suicide from overdosing. It was one of the hardest things I had to deal with. And a lot of my other friends close to me have depression issues. And so it's hard. It makes you very hypocritical, to say the least. They say that stuff and you're like, well, why are you saying that? And then you turn around and say the same exact thing. But the one thing that I've come to realize with depression is that it doesn't own me. Although things were looking great, last year in February I was in a car accident. Needless to say, God was definitely watching over me, because my driver's side was literally about 1.5 feet away from a street pole. My bumper was right over the stump where a tree stood not 6 months prior. And my passenger side was mangled. I used to give a friend a ride to school every day, and for some reason that day she didn't go to school. I was very grateful for that. And I only had visible injuries. I only needed 17 stitches for glass. That was in my face. But depression ended up coming back with a vengeance. The trauma, wondering why me, why God. By this time, I was getting really close with God. I was working on my relationship, things were great. It all went right back down. One night, shortly after my accident, I was home alone. And I had been prescribed Oxycontin and naproxen for the pain. I took 3 Oxycontin and 4 naproxens. As soon as I swallowed that last naproxen, God was screaming at me, "Why are you doing this? Why are you going against what I already saved you from? I saved you from that accident. It's supposed to help you grow stronger, not try and fall and leave again." So I tried to get up to go to the bathroom to throw the pills up, but I ended up standing up too quickly and I passed out. I woke up literally 10 seconds before my best friend showed up after getting off of work. I couldn't tell her what had happened. I couldn't go in the bathroom and throw him up then. She would know something was up. So all I could do was pray to God that they didn't take the effect that they should have. Nothing happened. Things continued to look up. I didn't tell anyone of that incident for months. Things were getting better. I was working on things with God again. I'd been really close with our youth pastor and his wife. And I could tell Amy anything. And I did. I told her everything. She's one of the first people I would go to if I ever had a problem. And it's really nice to know that God puts certain people in your life for a reason. I have Amy and then my best friend that I know I can go to if I ever need to. And for so long, I've questioned how my best friend and I became friends. Why did it start? When did it start? But none of that matters, because I know why it started was because God told it to. I ended up still struggling with depression. And last November, I'd contemplated to attempt again. Things were just going really bad. There was a lot of stress. A lot of things were going on. And I just couldn't handle it. I went to a concert with my youth group up in Omaha. Thought if I get out, they won't think anything's wrong. Go home. That'll be it. A complete stranger. Well, she's not a stranger anymore, but she ended up praying for me. She knew something was wrong. And the emotion she put behind that prayer for someone she didn't even know literally saved my life. And things have been getting better. I still stumbled. I've still stumbled since November. I've still cut myself. It's a crutch that I have. It's something that I feel like I need to be happy. But I know it's not. I know that's the devil just telling me if you do it, you'll be happy. But the true happiness comes from God and those you surround yourself with. It's taken me 5.5 years to realize that the true happiness comes from within, not from what the devil puts in your head, because those are just lies. But the main thing that I've learned is to never give up, because no matter how hard things get, they will get better. You could be at the lowest of lows. God will be right there to lift you back up. And it's amazing to see the transformation that you can see within yourself when you give everything to God. And, depression doesn't make me Kayla. It makes me a survivor. Hi, my name is Kayla, and I am a beautiful creation of God.